My name is Julie, and I am a college student. I recently got a job at a local Dunkin' Donuts near my dorm. It's a 15-minute walk, so it's convenient since my car is pretty beat up. I can't trust it to run for more than a mile, and I'm saving up for my remaining year in education. The Dunkin' Donuts that I'm working at sits just off the campus, and to be honest, I'm not shocked that there are still students ordering donuts at midnight. Well, it's a donut and a coffee. Perfect combination, I must say. But the one that shocked me the most is almost at the end of every shift. We were throwing the leftover donuts away. It has always been their policy to never give away the remaining ones, and that it must be strictly be thrown in the garbage plastic bag at the end of the day. Some franchises allow their employees to take home leftover donuts, but in my case, my manager is pretty strict on implementing policies. We were instructed that whatever is left over, we would write numbers on a sheet to help the person who orders donuts know what is selling or not, and then they are thrown in the trash. It pains me to watch mouth-melting donuts thrown away, where it can be given to the homeless. It's a shame and a loss. One time, out of curiosity, I asked my manager about the wasted donuts. She raised an eyebrow and told me that it was because they didn't want to get sued if someone claimed that they ate it and got sick. So just like every late night, as my shift's coming to an end, we were throwing the remaining ones in a black plastic bag, sealing it tight since there would be homeless people that would go through the garbage, and place them at the trash area just near Dunkin' Donuts. If you ask me why I didn't even dare to take home at least one donut when we were throwing it out, it's because my manager is always watching us. It's pretty creepy, and it's not like I would grab a donut from a garbage bag. So like always, after me throwing them away, my manager would go through the bag. I'll clean the whole store and check the inventory for the next shift. One day when I was at my dorm sitting studying for my upcoming exams, my roommate, Emma, came home with a box of freshly made donuts. She told me that she had just started her small business and that she had personally made them. It smelled something familiar, but I doubt it was Dunkin', since it came in a different packaging and they had cute frosted design on top. I suppose working there made my nose smell Dunkin' Donuts all the time. Anyway, they smelled and looked great, and I wouldn't mind tasting them. "Hey Julie, guess what?" came an ecstatic voice. "What?" I asked, looking over at Emma with an amused face. "I sold 8 boxes today. Too bad that there is still a box left, but I don't care," Emma said, and placed a box of donuts at a table nearby and decided to eat it. I heard my stomach growl and looked at the clock. It was almost 8 p.m. and a couple more hours my night shift starts. I realized that I have not eaten dinner yet due to studying. "Here, you can eat with me. There's plenty more where that came from," Emma said, smiling, and I haven't been more grateful to have a roommate who is also a friend to share her food with me. So I indulged myself with a box of donuts. When it was time for work, I said goodbye to Emma and headed off to Dunkin'. Just like every night, I had to stand behind the register, check the inventory, clean off the tables, and mop the floor. It was a long night since there had been more customers than usual, as there is an upcoming exam. After my shift as usual, we have to throw away the remaining ones again, but this time is different. My manager, who is always on the lookout, actually spits at the donuts. I was disgusted by what I saw. I mean, isn't it enough to just throw away the donuts? I really don't get why she would do that. She caught me staring, and she stared back at me, shooting daggers as she said, "I'm just doing them a favor. I saw a homeless man go through the garbage yesterday night. I bet they would eat that." She smirked and left, not even sealing the freaking garbage bag. I was left speechless and stared at the donuts dumbfounded. I decided to pack them in a box and sealed it with tape, hoping that none of the homeless would go through it and eat the donuts with a spit on it. For several days, I did that until we ran out of boxes. Every day the manager would spit on the leftover donuts, which left me disgusted, but what can I do? I am just a regular employee. I cannot afford to lose my job, as I badly need extra allowance for my studies. It's just disgusting that I want to throw up every single time I witness her horrible actions. Then one day, as I was leaving the store, I noticed someone at the trash area going through it and saw the open garbage bag filled with our leftover donuts. I ran as fast as I could, and when I caught the person, it was Emma. We both froze. I was completely stunned with what I just witnessed and found myself speechless. I glanced to what she was holding. She was placing the donuts in the box that she was selling. Not just that, she would put frosted designs to make it look like it was originally made by her. I felt my stomach turn upside down when I remember all the times she offered me those that she wasn't able to sell. That explains her recent situation when she wasn't able to make and sell donuts when I used to seal them in a box. I threw up by the times that I've eaten the freaking donuts, where my manager spit at, and whatever she was putting on it. Emma looked at me with shock on her face as well. After I was done, Emma explained to me why she was doing that, saying that she needs to pay for her school fees and that she saw people doing it on YouTube. I immediately left Dunkin' Donuts, moved to another dorm, and went to the doctor's. Since that day, I have never talked to Emma and never ate a donut again. My name is Louisa, and I'm now married in my late 20s. I fondly remember how I used to live alone and had little or no friends, while I lived most of my life on the internet. To give you an idea about me, I was a typical introvert teenager who has low self-esteem, and I don't put makeup on or apply any skincare. I see myself as a plain woman. Until one day, I was in search of a job and got accepted at Dunkin' Donut near my apartment. After a month working as a salesperson in day shift, an offer for a night shift showed up and I took the offer. Working night shift is an absolute advantage for me since there are only few customers, and it is not as busy as the day shift. I thought I was the only one putting in for the job, but little did I know that someone also took the night shift. His name is Jake, and he is the only guy among us. He was the first to approach me, and we've talked about a lot of random things. As our conversation goes, I discovered that we had a lot of similarities. I found out that he also likes watching anime. He's also a fan of my favorite band, and that he also binge watches my favorite Netflix series. I find it hard to make friends, since it is unlikely to find people who have the same interest as mine. That's why not long after we became friends, days passed by, I noticed that he seemed to have more empathy and got soft-spoken, like he was being too concerned for me. He usually likes to start the conversation and ask too personal questions, which makes me feel uncomfortable to answer. He'd even offer to buy me dinner sometimes, and other times he'd ask to walk me home, which I obviously refused. I see him as a friend, but I believe there are boundaries, especially he is a guy. Also, he doesn't talk too much about his background. I have no idea about him other than we're colleagues and our similar interests. He'd usually ask details about my life, but whenever I ask his, he'd change the topic. I just thought he's naturally an extrovert and being really friendly with me. I don't want to assume things. And like I said, I see myself as a plain woman that no guy would be interested in. But things started to get intense the day I gave him a listening ear, when he shared me his personal problems, which was unusual, I thought. "Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it." Jake grinned while he mopped the floor next to me. "Well, payday is my bright day." I made a joke which shouldn't require more than a giggle, but Jake burst out laughing hysterically. "So you stay alone?" This was the first question he asked, and I answered indifferently, as though it didn't matter. "Yes, I do," I answered. "It must be tiring staying alone. Do you want me to live with you? You could save more money in that case," Jake said, then gave a creepy smirk face. "What are you talking about? Please stop joking about that stuff again," I answered and walked out on him to get busy elsewhere as I was starting to feel irritated. I could feel his bulging eyes glare at me as I left, and I had seen how energetic he was towards how I live, but I decided to think it was a harmless question. The next day, immediately we finished cleaning and everyone decided to rest in the locker room. I sat alone to stretch my back when he slipped into the bench next to me again, with our skin now making weird contact.
"How do you sleep at night, Louisa?"
he asked, and things started getting funny.
"How everyone else sleeps, I guess."
I shifted on the bench and he did the same.
"I don't think so. You made a post about your sleep routine yesterday on Facebook."
Jake grinned knowingly. My stomach dropped.
"You follow me on Facebook?"
I asked while keeping my composure, even though I am creeped out at this point, because I have never given my personal account to him or to anyone else at work.
"Not really."
Jake smiled.
"But you have a false home address on your Facebook profile." "How did you know that?"
I screamed in shock. I could feel my body shaking. But Jake's wide grin stayed.
"I know where you live, Louisa. I saw you dancing into your house 2 days ago. Not only you followed my posts, but you've also followed me home."
I asked nervously.
"Not really."
Jake scratched his scalp.
"If I'm being honest, I am seriously freaking out right now. You're kidding, right?"
I asked him, but he didn't say anything and still pulling a wide grin. Meanwhile, I remember weeks ago that there was a suspicious account that followed me on my Facebook.
"Wait, are you stalking me? Is your name Juki on Facebook?"
I faded, realizing the similarities in the name that I hadn't recognized.
"I guess."
Jake placed his hand on my thighs, and I pushed him away reflectively and ran outside. I quickly called 911 and told them about my situation. Unfortunately, they told me they couldn't do anything about it unless he'd harm me physically. As disappointing as it sounds, I dropped the call and hurriedly went home. When I got home, I immediately searched for Jake's account. While searching, I have come to realize I knew that there was something odd about him. I find it sketchy that we had a lot of similarities. My favorite band, favorite series, favorite anime. It was all a fraud. The reason he knew these things about me is because he'd been stalking my social media accounts all these time. I also discovered that he was not just following me on my Facebook, but also on Instagram and Twitter. Fortunately, he uses the same username. It became easy for me to block them all. In the end, I decided to disable all my social media accounts. I'm glad I never trusted him. I'm just frustrated about the wasted energy I've given to him at work whenever we conversate. I knew I cannot stay any longer at my apartment, now that he knew where I live. I honestly never imagined myself in this situation, being a victim of creepy guys that stalk random women. I thought that being plain will save me from being their target. I was wrong. It is really not about how you dress or how you look. I messaged my manager that I quit my job and moved back to my parents the next day. Since then, I never went back to work at Dunkin' Donuts ever again. A few years ago, something happened that would change my life forever. I'm a male with a big body build. Most of the time, people are intimidated by my presence due to my physical appearance, but to the people who knew me, they know otherwise. In contrast to my intimidating presence, I always try to extend a hand to the people around me. That's how I was raised, and I'm glad. Even though sometimes they don't give back the same energy as me. I always say to myself that if no one does, no one would. I know it sounds heroic, but if one person could make a difference into someone else's life, let it be you. To begin with, I consider myself as a regular person, working from 9 to 5, making ends meet, and sometimes treating myself with a box of Dunkin' Donuts on the way home. I recently moved out of my parents' house and moved into an apartment complex near where I work. It was a multiple-story apartment. It was quite decent than in the ones I recently visited. And as I was settling down, piling up boxes just outside my door, I noticed a kid who was looking at me. He looked thin and had a pale complexion. I said hi in my deep voice, but he ran away. Probably got scared, which is a common occurrence to me. I was confused at first, but quickly got over it as I needed to move the boxes piled out in the hallway. The apartment was spacious. A dedicated living room, dining, a small room for kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. I was elated. It was my dream to have a place for myself, and I finally had it, and I spent the day moving in. The next day after work, I decided to go to a local Dunkin to order myself a box of donuts, specifically chocolate iced glazed with sprinkles, which is my favorite, and a cup of coffee. Once I got what I aimed for, I excitedly made my way home, thinking about the donuts I had purchased. As I was about to walk into my apartment, I noticed a kid looking over at me from a distance. I wonder if he lives just beside me, I thought. He was looking at the box of donuts I had in my hand, then I asked, "Do you want some?" He thought for a while, then slowly made his way over to me. "What's your name?" I asked as I opened the box. "You can choose what flavor you want," I said, hoping that he'll not choose my favorite. "Nathan," he said and pointed at chocolate iced glazed with sprinkles. I was a little sad, but still I have 5 more left, so that should make up. I also noticed that there had been a bruise on his finger, the one that he pointed at. I was bewildered by what I saw. He looked normal on the outside other than he was thin. I suspect nothing strange. "Where are your parents?" I asked, hoping that it would not come off as prying. The kid looked at me after finishing the donut. "They're working," he said, and as I was about to ask about the bruise, there's a lady and a guy calling out from the nearby hallway. "I'm here," Nathan said and ran back. Days passed and I still think about that encounter. Every day I come home, Nathan would be there waiting. We would talk and laugh, and according to him, I became his best friend forever. I learned that his mom and dad were on a business trip and were away for weeks. That's why his babysitter was there taking care of him. But most of the time, I noticed that he was outside and that a certain guy goes over to their apartment. He also mentioned that the bruise on his finger was for the doctor to check, which he didn't know, and I don't want to ask more questions, since he gets down whenever we talk about the hospital and how he goes in and out of it. It left me wondering why. "Hey, mister," he said one time. He sort of looks like thinking deeply. We were sitting here at the front of the apartment complex. It became our meeting spot after I came home from work. It's like a routine, and I don't mind Nathan's company. And he happens to like my favorite donut as well. So every time I ordered something off Dunkin' Donut, I always got us chocolate iced glazed with sprinkles. "If I die, would you be there for me too?" Nathan asked, and I was shocked. He looked at me with seriousness in his eyes. I was left dumbfounded by the question. He looks down and said, "Mister, for a long time, you've been my only friend, and you give me donuts. I have no friends, and I guess they don't want to be my friends because I'm sick," he said, and I felt my heart ache. No kid should go through this, so I stood up and kneeled in front of him. "I'll always be here for you. Those kids that don't want to be your friend, they don't know what they're missing out," I said, pointing at the box of donuts beside him, and he giggled. "Best friends forever, right?" There are days when Nathan doesn't show up, and when he does, we're having a blast. But there came a time when Nathan didn't really show up, and I haven't seen the babysitter as well. I started to get worried and decided to knock on their apartment, feeling my anxiety grow by the second. A man in his 30s, wearing a black suit, opened the door. He looked quite disheveled and seems like he hasn't slept for days. He looked similar to Nathan with his blue eyes. I'm guessing this is his dad. He looked at me warily. I proceeded introducing myself as their neighbor, who happens to be Nathan's friend as well, and that I was worried I haven't seen Nathan since. I felt my body grow cold when Nathan's dad responded with words.
"He suddenly passed away."
He continued to explain that the doctor said it was because of diabetes, and that Nathan has a frail body and was born with it, so he had the carer give him a shot of insulin when needed. I felt my heart dropped. Tears came to my eyes, not knowing what to think. I felt like I am to be blamed for Nathan's demise. I had no idea he was suffering with diabetes, and I was so stupid to offer him donuts all these time. I kneeled in front of Nathan's dad and confessed to what I have done. Few days later, the police took me and interrogated me about the incident. I can't help but keep blaming myself for what happened, but I'm able to be released when they told me that the carer finally came forward, saying that she's the one to blame for Nathan's untimely death when she forgot to give Nathan's regular insulin shots. With tears in my eyes, I felt relieved, but at the same time blaming myself for giving Nathan some donuts. Then one time, Nathan's parents came and asked for forgiveness. I told them there is nothing to forgive. I can see how much they loved their son. They said they admitted their shortcomings and were too focused at work. They have neglected Nathan's condition. Soon after, I decided to move forward raising awareness for people, especially kids with diabetes. For Nathan, my best friend forever, may you rest in peace.
Our official merch store is finally here. If you want to support more of our channel, check out our merch shop. The link is in the description down below. See you on the next video.